Hello, everyone. Today, I'd like to share some ideas with you how Latin inscriptions can be used not only as a dynamic tool to teach language, but also as a powerful means to engage students with cultural heritage. So through reading and interpreting inscriptions, they can develop stronger Latin skills while also forming a meaningful connection with heritage and develop a sense of appreciation for it. So this short presentation highlights several tried and tested methods that were used during the past 2 years in the summer school called Collegium Carolivicanum, which is a program dedicated to classical languages and traditions. The summer school promotes the study and transmission of Europe's classical heritage by enhancing knowledge of ancient civilizations and classical languages. The immersive format of the school, encompassing courses, workshops, leisure activities, and daily interactions conducted entirely in Latin, helps both passive and active language development and upholds the tradition of Latin as a language of intellectual exchange. The school welcomes high school and university students, regardless of their Latin proficiency, and teachers as well. All participants are placed in Latin language courses, beginner or advanced, and they can choose from various elective courses whether they want to hear more about classical Greek, Old Church, Slavonic, Biblical, Hebrew, or even classical Chinese. In 2023, for the first time, the program included a course fully dedicated to reading and understanding Latin inscriptions. The course began with the introduction, which contained what are inscriptions, what was their purpose, how were they made, materials, types, language, and epigraphic conventions. And they also learned something about linguistic features, such as formulaic expressions, abbreviation systems, and more about epigraphic conventions in general. So using real examples and inscriptions, they learned how to expand abbreviated words, how to recognize formulas and ligatures and decipher them. Also symbols such as sigla, which denote ranking or currency, for example, centurio or sestertii. This hands-on approach sparked interest and significantly facilitated learning of this new material. So considering the vast number of abbreviations that can be found in inscriptions, we practiced only the most frequent ones, and they were also given a list of common abbreviation to use in the remaining inscriptions, which we read during the remaining classes, which were solely intended for reading and interpretation. So with the guidance from the instructor, they identified formulas, type of inscription, abbreviations, ligatures, and most importantly, the text and everything that comes with it. Once the meaning of the inscription was explained, students would retell and rephrase it as an exercise, allowing them to show different levels of language proficiency, and also students were easier able to follow the text. This retelling using synonyms or alternative grammatical constructions help them reinforce both vocabulary and grammar. In terms of vocabulary, the diversity of the inscriptions naturally introduces new terms and concepts, while the inscriptions, despite their formulaic nature, offer excellent opportunity for practicing synonyms, antonyms, and longer inscriptions, specifically those written in verse. They offer even more opportunities for rephrasing, for noting turns of phrases, metaphors, and most importantly, they encourage deeper grammatical and syntactical analysis. After this, we always had discussions about individuals mentioned in the inscription, what their occupations were, their family background, and the students were encouraged to speculate about the everyday life of the individuals we met while reading the inscriptions. Because of the very concept of the school, these classes were conducted in Latin, as I have already mentioned, but this approach can easily be adapted to the classrooms where Latin is taught via more traditional teaching through students' native languages. Inscriptions are highly effective also for translation practice, for cultural analysis, or historical interpretation. And for the past 2 years, our school has taken place in Sremska Mitrovica, or ancient Sirmium, which is very rich in epigraphic material. So thanks to the support of local museum staff, some classes were held in museum and lapidarium, and this was great opportunity for students to engage directly with authentic inscriptions and to put the knowledge from classroom into practice. To enhance their engagement with inscriptions, I created several interactive activities in form of games, actually. For one of the assignments, I created symbolic representations of inscription fields and redacted parts of the text. So students were given those redacted text and tasked with identifying the inscription and then filling the missing parts using the text they found on stone. While working in teams, they matched clues to actual stones, and later we read and interpreted them together, just as we had practiced in class. This activity was successful, if I may say so, because some students even requested additional tasks, and they collaborated greatly, and I think that also inspired greater engagement with inscriptions. Additionally, I introduced a more relaxed game, which in some ways resembles bingo. So students used cards, which you can see here on the screen. And on these cards, they had tasks which could be completed by once again exploring the inscriptions displayed in the courtyard of museum. So this was also, I think, really simple, a really simple game that actually was only able to be completed by reading really carefully the inscriptions surrounding them. To wrap up the experience, they applied their knowledge by crafting original inscriptions. They were given freedom to choose the type of inscription, votive, funerary, and so on, and they could dedicate it to a real person, maybe historical or mythical creature, or even a deity or abstract concept. And they actually had to use their newfound skills and had the insights from actually seeing how the monuments and inscriptions look like in the museum. Some students even invented detailed biographies of ordinary Roman people and then used everything they invented to put on the stone. They even crafted elaborate decorations, not only for the inscription, but only for the tombstone. But unfortunately, I do not have photos of all of their creative projects, only some of them that are displayed here on the screen. And even though the inscriptions were not the focus of a specific course in 2024, students still had a chance to engage with them. First, through an introductory guest lecture, and then by working directly with inscriptions during follow-up workshop. So during the lecture, they were introduced to common linguistic and epigraphic conventions once again, formulae, abbreviations, and basically they had a crash course of everything some of them had the opportunity to listen in the year before. The next day, we had a field trip to the same lapidarium, and there they practiced reading and deciphering inscriptions in a more relaxed workshop setting. They were once again divided into groups, and they had to solve a sequence of challenges using the inscriptions. So each group started with the same initial task, and they were given the next one only upon successfully completing the previous one. They could write it out or point it directly on the inscription. The tasks once again were presented in Latin and required them to find specific linguistic and epigraphic features, ligatures, formulae, date expressions, and so on. So they required actually close reading and active problem solving, but they didn't seem to mind, and they approached it with notable engagement. So I strongly believe that these activities can easily be adapted for regular classroom settings by introducing key epigraphic concepts before visiting local museum or lapidarium. They can actively apply their knowledge during the field trip, and this only enriches uh, Latin instruction and fosters interdisciplinary learning. And maybe last but not least, it strengthens collaboration between schools and museums. This also, these methods suit various ages and proficiency levels, so the same formats can be used for high school and university students with complexity adjusted to their needs. Our experience and student feedback actually confirmed that integrating inscriptions into the classroom revitalizes Latin teaching. They offer tangible connection to ancient world. They spark motivation and sustain engagement. When combined with game-based activities or structured challenges, even complex material becomes approachable and, dare we say, enjoyable. So ultimately, this immersive hands-on approach fosters not only linguistic skills, but also historical empathy and cultural awareness. We believe that this method ranks among the most effective ways to connect young learners with rich reservation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jelena. Now I will invite our colleague Dragana Grbic. Nikolic. Yeah, while you find your presentation, I will just announce your title, Playing with Inscriptions, Experimenting with IE on in Epidoc workflows. Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elena. As announced, the title, I should probably explain the title first, because it's fun, playing with containing AI. And it's, first of all, I would begin with this disclaimer, because this is not a tutorial. It is rather an invitation to reflect on how AI tools, like very popular ChatGPT, can support us, challenge us, and occasionally frustrate us in digital epigraphy. My goal here is to open an invitation, open a conversation on what are the possibilities of using AI as a tool in digital epigraphy, what should it do, what shouldn't it do, and how it might change the way we work, and how it can influence workflows in digital epigraphy. So more on my aims here in this talk today, because this is something that I explored specifically for this talk. This is nothing, I don't have any previous experience with using these type of tools in encoding. So I wanted to explore how this can assist our workflow, and what's the potential to streamline those tedious tasks and probably speed up the process. But also having in mind the great potential of AI to hallucinate, what are its limits and challenges, because there is a great danger in misusing this type of tool. So for the less audience less familiar with what Epidoc is, this is a set of guidelines for standard guidelines for encoding ancient inscriptions, editions of ancient inscription in a format titled TI-XML, and it's standard that makes editions machine readable, searchable, and interoperable. So you can see I put a snippet of how XML tags substitute traditional marks in addition. So this is for those that don't have. So usually this is using automatic conversion for encoding. Those edition is not a new thing. So teams, large projects already have mechanisms of automatizing the process of of tagging in XML by using different methods. First of all, using a standardized data source, storing in a very organized, systematic manner data that would be later transferred to XML, or using some predefined templates, which would make you do the same thing, same way for each and every inscription in your corpus, or using Python scripts or crosswalk mapping tables. But this means that you need to have an expert knowledge or a programmer who can do this for you. For example, I have no idea how to, I have an idea how Python script would be written, but I personally don't know how to do that. As I said, automatic conversions are not quite a new thing. There are also some simple tools which are not high-end tools used by expensive projects, but tools that are available online for anyone to use. You have here on the display, it's a little applet in JavaScript called ChatC, where you can put your text of your inscription, and it returns some kind of code, which also, of course, needs to be checked and revised to see if everything it doesn't work perfectly. Also, but there are several such available tools online. So, having this in mind, all this, I wanted to test for this occasion, to test the free version of ChatGPT, because nowadays it's very popular and people are using it for different kinds of things. And so I wanted to, just for experiment's sake, to see what it can do here, how it can be exploited. And also having in mind those hallucinations, I was curious to see what it will return. So I wanted to also, I wanted to see what it can give by giving first the simplest natural language prompts, such as, "Dear ChatGPT, could you encode this inscription for me?" And then going towards more complicated solution. So at first, I started, as I said, I started with very simple, very in-specific prompts, but also, of course, it didn't give any good results, because the conclusion here was that when you gave vague prompts, the results were also vague or hallucinated. As I said, when I said hallucinated, it means completely made up, something that really doesn't exist, but it's something like a real hallucination. So, and also missing tags, incorrect syntax, invalid or invented attributes. So I wanted to give him additional input, but also providing just a link to a source. Even though it was a standard source, it turned out that it couldn't follow the link the way a human would. It just didn't work, and it gave wrong result. As you can see, this is really not good encoding. There were a lot of errors, something that simply doesn't fit. It wouldn't validate well. So I provided further some, but not very specific guidelines, by providing a simple document that's usually used in Epidoc workshops, trainings. This is a small cheat sheet that you use during the training, but also, as you can imagine, it wasn't sufficiently detailed enough, and the prompts still needed to be more precise. So it was somewhat better, but still with errors. also trying to give it more complex tasks to include tagging named entities, names of persons, deities, and so on. It did some work, but it wasn't specifically what I was looking for. So you need to teach it further to how to encode those results. And as it was fed with more detailed results, it got better. It got better, but still not perfect. And by this time, I was very frustrated and I got really very bored. So what I did next, I provided more detailed documentation, which contained a set of tags that I used in my project. And this was really, this changed the picture a bit, because now it had returned much more complex tagging. It did, for example, it learned very fast that the tagging should be bilingual. It learned how to introduce the right set of tags, and it didn't, when provided with better input, it returned much better encoding that I didn't have so much things to correct by hand. So there are several conclusions from this little experiment. Can I use ChatGPT to encode inscriptions in Epidoc without learning the rules of Epidoc first? Well, the answer is no. You still had to know the rules. You had to know everything that's going on to be able to use any of similar tools. And it's certainly not a substitute for expertise. Also, can I rely on ChatGPT to provide valid publishable XML files? The answer is still no. All outputs must be reviewed, corrected, and validated by human. But can ChatGPT speed up repetitive encoding tasks? This might happen, but only and only with the right prompt. It can be also, it can work much better with the things such as metadata, headers, and stuff that are really not, are more general. Those tasks can benefit from the use of AI, and also it can provide some technical support for those who are perhaps not very confident and need to check something. It can, but it's still very. I would be very careful with doing that. So the conclusions can be summarized as follows. Prepared materials and documentations should be done in advance. If you use such tools, prompts need to be very specific and have to come from someone who really knows what to expect. And of course, everything has to be reviewed manually by human. And this exercise emphasized that AI is most useful when we have a clear plan and realistic expectations. And so if ChatGPT can help, yes, it can, but only as smart assistant, not as epigrapher. And it can, as I said here, it can lower the technical barrier, but not the standard. So this was it for me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dragana. Now, according to our program, we have a coffee break, and then we will continue with the last two presentations.
places. So I have a great pleasure to introduce our dear colleague, Elena Djukeska. And today she will deliver us the presentation, What's the Story? Uncovering the Universal Value of Curiosity with Epigraphic Monuments. So, Elena.
Okay, thank you. I will start with I would like to revisit first the definition about what cultural heritage is, which is personally my favorite, and which has been drafted during the convention of the European Council on the value of cultural heritage for society in Faro 2005. And the definition says that cultural heritage is a group of resources inherited from the past which people identify independently of ownership as a reflection and expression of their constantly evolving values, beliefs, knowledge, and traditions. Obviously, this is a definition that highlights the dynamic nature of cultural heritage today, perceives it as a dynamic phenomenon, as a cultural process, which involves a range of activities such as commemorating, remembering, communicating, passing on knowledge and memories, asserting and expressing identity, and of course, social and cultural values and meanings. So accordingly, with this definition, heritage education, that is an education which, instead of teaching about historic resources, utilizes historic resources as a tool for teaching not only history, but also geography, math, art, languages, science, economics, anything, is an experience, a learning event, which includes seeing, hearing, feeling, touching, smelling, moving, and exploring. This dynamic approach to heritage education allows students to explore, to discover, to analyze, to produce their own knowledge by adding new information and new dimensions to the knowledge they already possess, and of course to acquire key competencies. What I would like to argue today in this short presentation is first, that this dynamic approach to heritage education is actually closely related to the curiosity approach in education. Second, that cultural heritage representation and dissemination as a learning event could significantly benefit from the curiosity approach. And thirdly, that the curiosity approach could indeed transform epigraphic monuments into talking stones, not just to the epigraphers, but to the wider audience as well. Curiosity approach starts from the presumption that curiosity is foundational to human cognition, and that it is necessary for effective learning. But how exactly this approach is applied? Curiosity is a disposition to inquire, to investigate, and to seek knowledge. But to spark curiosity, we need curious environment. And that is an environment in which will invite learners to investigate, to discover, to experiment. That is an open-ended environment that offers flexibility and choice. An environment in which thought-provoking questions are welcomed. Curiosity approach in education is actually about facilitating such an environment, which means that learners are asked open-ended and thought-provoking questions, and then teachers listen to their ideas, opinions, and questions, and provide feedback on their progress. So how can we create such an open-ended, thought-provoking, curious environment in the case of epigraphic monuments written in Greek and Latin? This is us yesterday in Stibera. From my perspective, everyone was turned with the back and faces towards the inscriptions, because we were all curious about the archaeological remains and the inscriptions, and we were trying to read them and interpret them, and we were discussing them, and even in the bus after we left the site. But what do you think? If we were not epigraphers, historians, or classical philologists, would have we been curious in the same way? For example, if we would not know Greek language, would have we been curious about this stone and what is written on it, especially if we don't know the language and we don't know anything about the context? To find out the answer to this question, I conducted a little experiment. I made a little survey in which I gave the translation of this exact inscription that we saw yesterday and we were reading in the Temple of Tyche, the inscription number 336 in the IG edition. The participants, the inscription is from the 126-27 AD, as it is dated in the IG inscription. And we all know that it is located in the Temple of Tyche in Stibera, today's Čepigo. But the participants of the survey were only given the translation of this inscription, which contains information about the act of a woman called Anthestia Fusca. The inscription goes, the heirs of Anthestia Fusca, according to her testament, restored the goddess Tyche to the city along with the temple and the statues in it, and they counted out 5,000 denarii to the council. The names of the heirs follow: Titus Flavius Philoxenos, son of Orestes, Marcus Vettius Nicarchos, Gaius Julius Capito, Publius Anthestius Trophimus, and Publius Anthestius Chrestos in the year 274. So the participants in the survey were asked to answer one general question, which was, would you like to know anything else about this inscription? And they were given the opportunity to make a multiple choice from a list of 19 questions, which I posed. And of course, they were given the opportunity to add if they have any question which was not mentioned in the list. And the questions were as followed. They were able to choose as many questions as they felt appropriate. So the questions were: when and how was the inscription discovered? Who published it for the first time and who wrote further about this inscription? Why does the inscription bear the year 274 if it is dated to the year 126 AD? Why it is written in Greek? Who could have read this inscription at the time when it was written? What was the function and purpose of the inscription? Who was Anthestia Fusca? Did she have a family? Who was the goddess Tyche? Why did Anthestia Fusca make this dedication specifically to the goddess Tyche? Why was the dedication of Anthestia Fusca made through a will rather than while she was alive? For what purpose were 5,000 denarii given to the council? What was the actual value of 5,000 denarii at the time the inscription was written? Who were the heirs of Anthestia Fusca? are Aunt Hestia Fusca and her heirs mentioned on another inscription from Stibera? How did Aunt Hestia Fusca acquire the money for the donation? Who was the Roman emperor at the time when this inscription was written? What kind of statues are mentioned in the inscription, and were they found together with the inscription? Was it common for women to donate money for the construction of temples and statues in the 2nd century AD? I created these questions, of course, based on my research about these inscriptions, and what I found, of course, interesting to me. Certainly, I omitted my personal interest about the Greek language. But I try to formulate the questions in different way. As you may have noticed, some of the questions are actually pretty linear, and the answer would be related to, let's say, some simple facts about the inscription, and the other questions are sort of tricky, and they pose a problem, and they create a situation of thinking. So what were of course, yeah, and the participants were also asked to provide information about their age and about their education, just in order to extract some information I thought that may be useful to relate to their choice. And that was it. The survey was generally open for the wider audience. Only a few classical philologists were included because, and of course, certainly not historians or epigraphers because, of course, they are too educated for this kind of survey. So I received 56 answers regarding the age. Below the age 20 or below are 23 of the participants. 12 of them are aged between 41 and 70, and between 21 and 40, and between 41 and 70 is the age of 20 participants. This is not a big, of course, number of answers. And of course, especially not for what could have been a systematic study, but nevertheless, there are a few points that I think are indicative for our topic that we are discussing today. The first one is, I think that should be acknowledged, is that most of the participants chose more than one question. Only 5 of them chose just one question. And I suspect that some of them maybe actually did not pay attention to the instruction. Maybe they thought that only one is possible. Then another important point is that there are no 2 identical choices. Each choice is individual. But of course, there are preferences. And that's what I think is interesting. There are questions which are more popular than the others, appear to be, and then there are questions which are, let's say, least popular. So, which is the winner question? Of course, there is one such, and that one is, who was Aunt Hestia Fusca? 75% of the participants chose that question, of course, among the others as well. The other 2 questions, which are also very popular, obviously, are why did Aunt Hestia Fusca make this dedication specifically to the goddess Tyche, and why does the inscription bear the year 274 if it is dated to the year 126? The first question was chosen by 60% of the participants, and the second one by 51.8%. It is interesting also that there is equal interest for the questions such as when and how was the inscription discovered, who was the goddess Tyche. These topics are interesting for 46% of the participants. Now, if we compare these choices to the information about the age and education, the professional occupation, of course, it naturally those who are under the age of 20 are students or high school or university students, and they don't have professional occupation, but of course they are inclined to have one. And it appears that the age and the professional occupation are actually not important about the curiosity and are not indicative about personal preferences in this aspect. Which means that students aged under 20 can have equally wide or narrow interests as anyone older. So I think that no specific conclusions can be reached about this. But it is significant for me that 11 participants, which is about 1/5 of the whole number of them, asked for more than 20 additional questions referring to various aspects of this inscription: its form, its content, its location, its significance, its historical, socio-political, religious, and economic contexts. And I think this is important to note because their professional occupation has nothing to do with classical philology or history or archaeology or any specialist field relevant for the epigraphy and archaeology. So what can we conclude from this small experiment? First, I would say that results of the survey show that the general audience is in fact curious, and that curiosity is universal value, just as Aristotle thought that it is, and that all men and women actually naturally seek for knowledge. And we should never underestimate it in our efforts to represent cultural heritage, no matter how complicated that heritage might seem. On the other hand, it is obvious that the general audience needs more than just a translation of an inscription. And that's why actually they ask so many questions, because from the translation, it is not clear anything about the general context of the inscription and about the circumstances that would explain its content. And the audience is actually seeking for this. The audience wants to know about the context of the inscriptions, about its background, in order to grasp the bigger picture. Another important thing is, I think, that the audience, by what the choice of the questions, I think, indicates, is that the audience wants to establish personal relationship with the cultural heritage. Each one of us, of course, enjoys cultural heritage in an individual way, of course. And whether we want to use cultural heritage in education, for educational purposes in the classroom, or we just want to tell a museum story, it is important to provide the audience with the opportunity and means and motivation to make their personal choices. Of course, in order to be able to appreciate the cultural heritage. It has to be said that creating a curious environment by asking open-ended and thought-provoking questions, the process has to start from the very beginning, and that is the study of the inscriptions. Because it is the questions, and then to continue in the other stages of the representation and dissemination of the heritage. Because it is the questions that underlie the investigation of the inscription, their interpretation, and the creation of interesting stories, and of course, starting and inspiring discussion. Instead of just enumerating the facts about an inscription, or providing a simple translation, I think we should offer the audience a story which poses uncertainty. A story which will invite the audience to give their own personal answers to the problems, to provide descriptions which would highlight different dilemmas that the interpreters, the investigators of the inscriptions became aware of. And of course, the problems that arise from different possible interpretations of the inscription. Of course, to contextualize the inscription as much as it is possible. And of course, each epigraphic monument reflects many different aspects of private and public life and human life and society. But in order to transform it into a tool which will be fully appreciated by the audience, we must give the audience a chance to participate actively in its interpretation. Actually, with this survey, I was able to involve 56 persons in the case of one inscription. After this, I will share the answers to the questions with them, and I will invite them to follow the results of our project. So this is one possible way how we could engage our simple way how to engage our audience. Today, the chat boxes were mentioned by Milan and the AI agent. And actually, for the purposes of this experiment, I asked a colleague of mine who works at the Faculty of Philosophy and works with artificial intelligence to create one. I gave him my answers to the questions, and he made this AI agent dedicated to these inscriptions. I hope that we will be able to open it. And this is, I think, one way how we can engage the audience and give it an opportunity to have a discussion, to ask, Ne? Ne. Okay. Не можеме да го отвориме ова да се гледа на екраната, ова линков. Или може би да одиме директно на интернет. Чекај. Само ќе треба да се скопира. Чекај. So, каде? Да слободно затвори ја. Готово е. Пак од почеток. Сега? Now we have it. So I gave my colleagues information, some basic information about the inscription, and let's see if we can ask this guy any of these questions, like, for example, the most popular one, who was Anthestia Fusca. The information I deliberately told him not to connect it to the internet so that the possibility of hallucination will be set to minimum. But is this working? No. Enter. Ništa. Okay, here it is, the answer to our question. So this is just a trial. The information may not be, of course, all of them perfectly correct according to our scholarly taste, but I think that it works 95%, and that it is a solution if we want to give a post. For instance, if we have a digital collection, we could create such chat boxes that could give the possibility for the audience to communicate with the content in a way of asking questions and giving in the receiving answers. Because this was created before I was able to see the additional questions that the audience, that the participants to the survey asked. If I would ask any of these questions, this AI agent will not provide us with answer. But I see here an opportunity that this could be a way how the audience could be engaged to participate in the interpretation and improvement of the representation, because it can help teach this. And this is one possible way how we could make our epigraphic documents, make them talk to the wider audience. Of course, there are other numerous possibilities. Thank you. Okay, this is managed. Okay. Yes. So I can continue now as a host of this session, and I will invite Vasilka Dimitrovska. She's our last but not least presenter of our workshop.
Hello to everyone. You sleeping? Not yet. Okay. I'm very grateful that this is my second participation in the Prometheus project, and this time it's quite different than the last year. I invite you to be really immersed into the presentation. One thing you see, another thing I will talk, and it's going to be very brief, just like my experiences I do. So I'm going to start. You see now the topic, how to bridge actually the metaverse and the real world experiences regarding the heritage. This is just a brief introduction about me, because this diverse background I do have actually enabled me during the years to create and to elevate the experience and the engagement with the audience, with the public, with the participants of some event or something like that, really deeply, like you did actually 2 days ago. So, as a case study, I took one of my really required experiences I do have. That's time travel with Queen Maria, a gamified journey to the Middle Ages. The experience itself is located at the Skopje Fortress. So the format consists of several elements: real-time adventure, AR, VR, and plus some other clues I won't reveal. You have to come to see it. So it is inspired by the Cheerleaders VR project, which is actually supported by the Creative Europe. I will talk about it. And the narrative or the story, it's about the medieval queen Maria Paleologina or Maria Paleologova, depends from the pronunciation. So just a quick intro, how the project actually and the story started. This is a Creative Europe project which finished this year in March, and it was between Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Macedonia, Montenegro, and Albania. The main aim was to find 5 very prominent medieval queens and to try to reshape their story into immersive storytelling in a digital world. At the beginning, I have to say that only the missing place was for Macedonia and for Macedonian queen. So I served as a main consultant of the project, and I gave the idea how to start and how to proceed with all of this. I have to tell you that regarding the heritage interpretation and engaging the audience, I really like the presentation by Professor Elena, because she really touched the deeply topic about the heritage interpretation. But actually, the outcome of this project was AR, VR. I have the VR with me here, and you can download it, the AR, depending from your operative system on the mobile phone. Through the internet. But for example, what we achieved is to reconstruct 5 locations connected with the 5 queens in the Balkans in AR, and especially in the VR with the gamified heritage experience. It's actually what I do in life. I did it in a digital world. So also one of the very important element was the historical reconstruction. And for the purpose, especially for the AR, the 5 costumes were created. But behind all of this is a lot of research and a lot of a science for each of these costumes to be reconstructed. And we do have one in Skopje, which is of Maria Paleologina, actually, and the others are distributed to other partners. I also forgot to say that one of the partners in this project was Haemus, my organization. So why is the historical reconstruction very important? It's, from my personal experience, it's one of the most engaging elements. You can do research, you can do science, you can do everything. But actually, what 1 minute or 2 minutes of live interpretation can do, it's directly to immerse you into the story, to suck you into the story. And this is what really people love and really people connect with, directly and very deeply and very immersively. So how I crafted the story about Maria Paleologina, believe it or not, but I started from one tombstone. You can see it in the Museum of Macedonia. It's available in their exposition, and a couple of artifacts and a couple of scientific articles, and that's all what was written about Maria Paleologina. So I started to craft the story, and while I was crafting the story and connecting all the dots and something like that about the Middle Ages in Skopje, I also crafted a handmade book of 100 pages. You can see it. I brought it with me. It's a part of the experience, actually. And this is how it looks like. Actually, for each of my experiences, I do have, through my interpretive program, Storytelling Skopje and Storytelling Macedonia, I do have a handmade book. I also have for the quest of Master Grown Hat, but actually I tailored made the experience. This is not the experience I usually deliver to schools or to teams or to companies or to visitors, something like that. I crafted specially for you to directly connect you with the local heritage, which is also a part of your passion. But anyhow, the structure of the experience I do have at the Skopje Fortress consists of a real quest adventure. This book actually serves me as just a starting point, and a lot of other things are happening for a 2.5 hours at the Skopje Fortress. Then the AR app, and then after that comes the VR app. Of course, the experience can be expanded with a lot of other modules and workshops, which I do with the different types. It's different with the schools, different with the visitors or with the scholars. Anyhow, I interpreted everything into a one interpretive journey. So I title it as a time travel with Queen Maria, but actually what people do when they are at the Skopje Fortress, they actively learn through the hands-on experience. They emotionally engage. They are really into the story, not only about Maria Paleologina, but in generally about the Middle Ages. And I'm very thankful because I'm really gifted. So I already said that I draw, I design, and I do all my visual materials, including the handmade materials, digital and handmade materials. This is one my small video. Which really resonates with people when they see on social media. That's my colleague Yasmina. She was really eager to put the costume. It was last July, like 35 degrees, but she said, no, I will do it because I love it. These are some photos of the different types of the experience I have with children, with adults, and so on. And they all love it because everyone wants to know more and more and to be deeply engaged. But people doesn't want to know about the science. You have to deliver them directly through different interpretive tools. What I do and I elevate is, for example, this is one inscription. They have to put it down. This inscription was one of the Byzantine towers and it lost now. Fortunately, it is published in a scientific article, so we can do a smaller reconstruction. So this is how I'm trying to engage them to love this classical science, which is for me a base of everything. I also elevated, this is something you can make a photo and scan it. This is a free audio tour, which is connected again to the experience, but it doesn't give any clue, neither of a real-time experience, neither of AR, neither of VR. It's especially another crafted story which can be made into another interpretive experience. So how I built this experience, it's a lot of research, and when there's nothing more, there's more research, scientific research. But also you need to know main elements of gamification. And this is something what we learn when we are kids and then we forget when we are adult. Then immersive storytelling, a lot of techniques about the storytelling. Then I am really fortunate to have the AR and VR, which gives another multiple layers to this experience. But in the middle of the experience are actually people. It's not a heritage. Heritage is there on the fortress, it exists. It's people. I work with people. I barely work with more than 10 to 15 people because I want for each of them to pass through the experience and to learn something through the hands-on activities. So I mentioned several times heritage interpretation, and I think that you will find very valuable my presentation from the last year activities of the Prometheus project. You can find actually on the YouTube channel of the project itself what is a heritage interpretation and what kind of range tools it really offers, and it also really like a lot. and encourage curiosity, co-creation. You also did this in the old bazaar. Actually, I don't craft the story, you craft the story around it. And you participate in this co-creation because I don't know the results of it. Anyhow, interpretive tools are both. They are educational, communicational, they are also management tool, and for all people who wants actually to bring the heritage in life directly from the scientific book and to deliver to people or to immerse the audience, they have to know at least the basics of heritage interpretation with the methodology. This is what I actually follow, and that's why all my experience, adventures, treasure hunts, activities, whatever I do are successful. Well, anyhow, research and new technology can really help to blend the metaverse with the heritage interpretation itself. But as I already said, the main aim is to protect the heritage and to put the people, it's a centered approach around the people and their values. The values were a couple of times in the last few presentations touched, and these are the values that people grow up, they actually resonate, and it really depends to which audience you are talking with or working with. But the values are actually the main core of heritage interpretation and Interpret Europe, the organization from which I come also. The main core of UNESCO, you know, those 17 goals about democracy, equality, and so on and so on, the main core of the European Union. So when you work with the audience, you have to work with the values, different types of the values, engaging a million other methods. Well, in this case, I see technology as an added layer, not just to be on a screen, but practically to help the heritage interpreters or museums or institutions. This is me. In Haimus, we do have this experience, but this experience is available in 4 other museums around the Balkans. So institution actually hosted this experience together with other activities. Well, anyhow, I think that this is a model that can be applied for many locations, for many situations, for many stories, and so on. Of course, you really need good input from Creative Europe, but actually these creative products are one of the most valuable through Creative Europe projects, and I think that they gave the most of the money with the projects engaging AR and VR because they should live and contribute to the local economy even after the project is finished. So the final message is that when we talk with the audience and when we interpret the heritage, practically we don't preserve it. There are institutions who preserve it, like the archaeological museum, conservation centers, and so on. When we connect directly with the audience and when we interpret, we must make it meaningful for them, not meaningful for the scientists, meaningful for the audience which is in front of you. So just to conclude, this is the last slide. When we bridge practically the metaverse with a gamified heritage experience, we open a gate, we unlock practically one whole universe which opens to you a different tools how to bring and to deliver everything what the scientists are working directly to the public. And I think that that would be all. So thank you for your attention and curiosity. And for anybody who wants to find me, I never gave my visit cards. I don't have visit cards in the last 20 years. You can find me on the internet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vasilka. Now we have actually plenty of time for discussion. So please feel free to ask questions about this last presentation or in general about anything that you can think of about the last 3 days. Please, Mitko.
Okay, actually, a lot of thought-provoking presentations this afternoon, but several questions, thoughts, etc., specifically towards Dragana and Elena's presentations. Of course, we all want to. This is a very pressing question: how to make our work easier and how to make the work of any potential collaborator of ours easier. You mentioned like pointing the ChatGPT to the schema, to the Epidoc schema. I wonder if we try to actually access the actual RNG file and copy the code of it, because ChatGPT is a IT tool and probably it understands code best. There are persons that I know who find it incredibly helping in finding them errors in their Python or whatever code. If we just copy the code and they say, then say to it, okay, conform to this, and find with the RNG schema describes which elements, sub-elements, values, and etc. should be used. And then if we put the metadata of inscription and say, okay, do a code which is conformable to this, will we yield a different result, or probably not? And the other thing which I personally found is really a pain in the neck for me is not the metadata. There are already some attempts at automating the metadata. There are some, for example, the papyri info habit boxes when you put information and it transforms in this. Okay, this is origin, ORIC place, ORIC date, etc. But the text of the inscription, where you can have no previous template in which to put it, you have to do it word by word. And I think this is where maybe some automatic substitution should come to play. And if we, for example, say to ChatGPT, okay, do this text, but transform, let's say, all the square brackets turned into supplier reason lost. All the things, all the strings between two spaces turn into word, lemma, brackets, etc. Should this work, and will be worth the effort, because we have to deliver a bunch of commands to it. This is just a thought of how we can experiment more with this to see what results we can yield. And now, should I let Dragana answer, because it's too much? And then I'll have to also to ask you something to actually propose to do something like the other way around of what you did.
Yeah, hopefully I remembered everything, but I think the idea with this experiment today, it was not, of course, I know that there are a myriad of ways to automatize the process, and there are also ways to do it very well. But what I did here deliberately is use the most basic thing, like pretending to be a most basic user, someone who's tried a bit of encoding, and it's very new to that, and someone who didn't like codes very much, and says to himself, okay, I'll just try this very modern new thing that everyone's talking about. And this is why I deliberately gave it very simple prompts. Like I knew it would be it wouldn't be a good output, but I wanted to grade those. I wanted to grade the experience and see what it gets, and what I get. So if someone doesn't learn Epidoc, they may think, okay, so this looks just about right. Should I use this? Yeah, but it wouldn't be. So I wanted just to show that people need to be people that don't have technical experience with this should be very cautious in using this. Of course, there are ways, and you saw probably when I inserted my own documentation, which has a bit of more detailed choice of codes used in the projects, it gave better results. It even it gave me metadata. It gave me the translation of metadata into Serbian, by himself, because my documentation said, okay, my project is bilingual. I use so it did well with the good input, but when the input was vague, results were vague also. So definitely yes, it can be used, and probably the paid model,
Yes.
paid and trained model, because it behaves like a trainee. It felt like a trainee. I got very bored midway. So I was really bored, and I wasted a lot of time teaching it how to do it. But if I wasn't bored or had more than 15 minutes, I could probably spend some time in trying to teach my model how to do this problem. Or if I inserted very detailed and very specific set of codes that I wanted to achieve in my project. So definitely, yeah, we can benefit from it. And I think that we don't have to reject it, but we have to think of the ways how it can influence our workflow, because it's all about workflow and how we organize ourselves at the very beginning. How do we organize our documentation in basic epigraphic work? So everything is comes after that. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, it's very egotistic of me. Can we use it like we for this particular project, or for, is it worth the effort to train it?
Yes. I
Okay,
think
we can
try,
experiment.
because we're experimenting a lot here, so why not? Yeah, we can try that as well, especially because we want to translate our data into three languages, three additional languages, because we do everything in English, and then we translate everything into Bulgarian, Macedonian, and Serbian. So it may pay off to try to train a model, but perhaps some paid model would behave better. So.
With the translations, especially, I would be a bit cautious, because I don't think if we, yes, but if we, for example, try to translate a technical term such as inscriptional field in Serbian or from Bulgarian to Macedonian, we'll get bullshit, basically. Yeah.
We would probably need to compile a documentation first and train it. Everything that we want to receive, we need to give. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Now for Elena, would you think it would be worth the effort if we turned it a bit around? For example, show the inscription to several entities and say what you think you understand of this inscription, so we see what their preconceptions or guesses, right or wrong, or misconceptions are about this, or we will receive so much noise that it's probably not help us get oriented on what we should then do with this one. Like, for example, say, put them in front of the text of the inscription and say, okay, how do you imagine the situation in which led to the production of this particular inscription? Because I thought of doing something like this with our writers. For example, people who have certain cultural background and interest in history, etc. And first asking them, what do you imagine this to be? And then figuring out what to tell them as background information. Or you think it's not worth it for a mass questionnaire like this?
Yes, of course, I think it's worth trying. It is actually what the curiosity approach is about. Like, instead of in education, they say at a very early age, instead of giving the children fancy toys with a lot of colors, you give them basically very simple things like materials, and then you let them do whatever they want. So I would suspect, yes, that in this case, if you just give them an inscription and tell them, okay, just express your thoughts about it, they would, I would guess that they would provide as much logical response as it is possible to understand from a simple translation. Okay, as much as the inscription is clear by itself. beyond that, of course, they will just try and guess. But I think it's worth because it will show how they the reception. It will show their reception. So I would say yes, it's worth trying. Why not? Mm-hmm.
My teaching experience where people really guess based on common sense that okay, this should be this, and they get it right there. And I'm excited. Oh yeah, if you think of it, it's not. It's not particle physics. It's something with you. Can, some things are accessible by common sense. This may, the joy of anagnosis, as Aristotle said, might provoke their further curiosity. We might try this also.
Of course, of course.
I'd like to see.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was mostly actually amazed about the fact that I asked 19 questions according to my own curiosity as I analyzed the inscription, and the other people added 20 more, and they were all in place, and they were actually very, very logical questions. Thank you, Dimitar. Yes, please. Yes. Do we need the micro? Ни треба микрофонът за Zoom или? Okay. Maybe I'm not sure if anyone is following us on the Zoom. So
I have a question for you and a comment for Dragana. First, a question, since you mentioned the 20 additional questions. Out of curiosity, pun intended, what kind were those questions?
Oh.
The reason I ask is because often what we may not expect turns out to be more interesting for someone who does not have an experience of epigraphy. In fact, some of the questions I have been posed in the past were difficult ones that I had not even thought of. So it may be.
Yes, yeah, of course. I think the same. So the questions like, are there any other similar in general? Are there any inscriptions on the same archaeological site? What about the history, the historical circumstances at the time when the inscription was written? The gods, what gods did the people believe in that time? Didn't Hestia Fusca, if she was a powerful person, did she earn her wealth herself or did she inherit it? If she was able to build a temple. And as we discussed the other day, even apart from that, give 5,000 denarii to the council. What is the actual state of the inscription? Is it easily readable? What's the state of preservance? What's the significance of this inscription in historical sense? What was the use of the word testament at that time? What was the meaning of that word actually and its sense? Where exactly in the temple was the inscription posed? And what does, this is interesting, depending on the location of the inscription in the temple, what does that tell us about the private wealth and the public interest? And of course, as well as the condition of the status of the woman at that time. And this is a question posed by a graphical engineer. You know, then what were the social political relations at that time when the statue was restored? Yeah, this is also interesting. Did Hestia Fusca actually had hidden intentions with this act of hers in terms of protecting someone from her family to gain some function, public or whatever, you know, something like that, or her function, her state. And of course, what was the general economical situation of the citizens in that time? Then some specific question like the etymology of the word denarius, whether it is etymologically connected to dinner, which we use today. Anything else about all those mentioned persons in the inscription? Is there any other similar event at the time when the inscription was written? And then even, let's say, some specific questions like, if there is a photo of this inscription, is this photo liable to copyright? Practical question.
That must have been an epigraph.
This is from a student. Yeah, and then of course, are there any other inscriptions in which the name of the goddess Tyche is mentioned? And if so, in which cities on the territory of North Macedonia? Why were actually statues and the reparations in these sacral objects conducted? Was the temple previously demolished by invaders, or it was just a regular renovation of the temple due to like something regular, you know? And that would be it.
Oh, very good questions.
Yeah. So if we provide answer to all of this, I think we can come to a better interpretation of the inscriptions, if it is possible, of course, to answer all these questions.
Thank you.
Yes,
Edma.
please.
It's for dragons. If you want for
I miss one question. What does the name mean? So it is a black flower lady or something like this? So this question was not.
I did not ask that question, but that was my personal question, so I checked it. Yeah, Fusca is from
Black-
Fuscus, with me someone
flower
black.
lady or something like this.
Yeah. But does it tell us anything about the ethnicity of the woman? If it refers to dark skin or no? That I don't know.
Yeah, that's a problem. So I have two points. One, I bought some booklets from Berlin. One is about the Inscriptiones Graecae in German and English, which is at the same moment an introduction to Greek epigraphy for beginners. So how the inscriptions come to the corpus. You can take it. And one copy, only 2 copies I have about the German epigraphers. And I would encourage you to collect all material about your epigraphers. And I have one quest. Of course, we have the quest. This is a picture of the first epigraphic congress in 1938. And I prepare a book about, with the title, The Lost Congress, because no publication about this because of the war which broke out 1 year later. We know that Woolwich was a participant of this Congress, and you have to look in these faces to recognize Woolwich's face, which would be a good supplement to the photos you have here. This was one, and the second one to you. Have you any experience with the Google Translator into Latin from modern languages and from Latin? Because it would be the students, my students always look for the handy, make a photo of the inscription, there's Latin or something like this, and then wait for a translation. Have you experienced what is with this?
Okay, so thank you for your question. I don't know if they use Google Translate to translate the inscriptions, but I know that high school students use it to translate simple sentences or text that they have to do for homework or something like that. And the students who do that, they do not know that the results are not really good. I personally think that Google Translate, even for modern languages, can be used for common phrases, maybe some short, simple sentences or individual words. But for Latin, it's much harder because I think it's programmed to learn based on statistical data, and I don't know what corpora it has for available, but word order and the fact that many words have more meaning than one can be extremely difficult to give any valuable output. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, you didn't finish your questions.
My comment to Dragana now. You may have gathered both from my talk and our discussions afterwards that I am a bit reluctant to various digital tools, but I would like to end with a note of optimism. I work with a photographer in field missions who is also a tech geek, and he has done excellent work in a research project for AI reconstruction of the hunt trees at Vergina. And so we were talking about uses of AI, and despite the fact that he is very careful about, AI noise or problems, hallucinations, and so on, he told me that a use you may think of AI, which does not work this year, may very well work next year. So maybe next year we'll have perfect tools for transforming simple epigraphic text into epidoc. Wait for a while.
I can just add that epidoc itself changed over year. The way that people do epidoc, the tools, everything. When epidoc first appeared, it was like something really completely different, intimidating. It was very hard for people to accept it. But now, as years brought many projects that accepted this, it also brought the methods how to use it and different tools that can help people, and it helped the whole community grow. So perhaps this also will happen, or it will be simply enhanced by AI. We don't know yet. It's the best we can say. We can't do that yet. So thanks for that.
Okay, anyone else would like to say something, add, or share thoughts? Of course, not limited to this final session. Maybe you want to share an impression from yesterday, from the first day. Feel free. Okay, Philip.
I have a comment or a question for you, Professor Jukeska. From what I heard from your presentation and what I noticed is that the most frequent questions were the questions which were the highest on the hierarchy by the principle of deduction. Mm-hmm. The most general question. For example, who was the Fusca or what or whatever. I'm guessing, or I want to ask you, what do you think? What could have been the tendencies if the questions were even more general? For example, what is in the inscription? What is inscription? What is epigraphy? Or what? Why the people from these periods even put the inscription on the walls or whatever? Do you understand me? Do you understand the question?
Yes, you mean to check. I will see now if I understand you. You want to know if it is worth asking people and checking the growing of their interest into more generally into the field of epigraphy, starting from one inscription.
What do you think? What would have been the tendencies if we ask them even more general questions? maybe at the first hand, we should fed them up with general infos for the inscription, for the epigraphy, and then try to ask them about specific inscription. What do you think about that?
Well, of course, you can make all kind of survey. I thought that I vision this as simply as a survey that will provide us information about how much information is necessary and what kind of information should we put in a story if we want to build the story about an inscription. Is there anything that people want to know first, which will help us focus, let's say, on that, just to check the preferences, and how far goes their curiosity and what concerns them. Of course, I mean, this is just a first trial. You can make more sophisticated analysis. I suppose that if they're generally curious, yes, they would like to know even something more about epigraphy, but I don't know, maybe not. We have to check it. Maybe they will say, okay, this is enough. I'm not generally interested into epigraphy. Who knows? We have to check it. We have to make a survey like that as well.
Yeah, because I'm a high school teacher, and what I have experienced till now, I think that with such an example with specific inscription, it's like we throw them in the middle of the ocean with questions like directly directed to the context of the inscription. Who is Fusca, or where she found the money, and so on and so on. Maybe I think that is my just thinking now that maybe we should fed them up with general context, give them more information, and then step by step asking them the question deeper and deeper and deeper, and maybe at the end we can find out what is the most interesting for them, what is dragging their attention the most.
You mean like in the sense to prepare them?
Yeah.
Okay, because they don't know it well.
I believe in that strongly.
Well, as a teacher, I would not choose that method. I would actually go straight in medias res and then allow the students to follow their own interest in whatever direction that they want to go, But of course, there are different ways. If no one else wants at this moment to ask something, so I have actually a question for Vasilka. I would like to ask you, what your instinct says, how would you gamify this inscription about this woman who donated a temple and statues of her family, and etc., etc.?
I was just about to pose the same question to all of you. So thank you very much for this question. I would do it with a live interpretation because I already did. In the first, she is talking to the audience. She's giving just a few information, like, hi, I am, what was her name? Fusca, and so on. I have lived here in Stibera in the 2nd century AD, by that angle, that house over there, which is now destroyed. You have to figure it out how, and so on. This is how I did it. That's why I said that the historical reconstruction with the costumes, which is really a very specific methodology, it's really very close to acting, actually, but with a lot of science and other interpretive methodology behind, could work for just a couple of minutes. It will be like a teaser, and it will really pick the curiosity by all the audience. And it's the most attractive one. And this is something what actually I've learned a long time ago, working on a lot of spectacles and plays, and especially festivals at the archaeological site of Viminacium. Actually, this is where I've learned live heritage interpretation, and now I teach this as a module. So this is how I would do it. But for this really requires like a lot of preparations, like a lot. This is not that ordinary tourist guide can do. It has to be someone who really knows about the science and to be in the time, to be in the place, not to mess with the dates or with the historical events or something like that, but just to give enough curiosity for the story.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else? If not, now we have we are supposed to have a small cocktail, but because we thought that we will finish a little bit later, I'm not sure if it is yet here. But anyway, I will give now the microphone to Slavica because I've had enough. So please, we can close the event anyway, and
we will close this event with a good news that we finally can see the exhibition of stone monuments here in the museum. So we will not wait for the food in waste, but we will discuss inscriptions upstairs. Thank you, everybody, for coming here. I personally, and I hope all of you have enjoyed these 3 days. I think they were extremely productive, creative, and fruitful. And just thinking that this was a beginning of a brainstorming. And as we discussed in the morning, we have a lot of work to do with our website. Thank you once again.